Well, happy Monday night, everybody. I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio, live from Pensacola, Florida. Where are you from? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Say hi. We should have a good entertaining night tonight. We are going to be showcasing Dixie Belle's newest product. It's the Terra Clay Paint. I'm going to do my best to get all into the details and using this product. And I'd love for you to continue to stay with us tonight. Watch this. Holler at a friend who's interested in this product or let them know about the new product. And by all means, in the description of this live, you'll see a link. Bookmark that link, use it in a little bit, especially when Terra comes out and all the fabulous products that they have. That would be fantastic. And well, there's a lot to talk about on this new product. So I'm gonna do my very best to tell you what I know as far as what I've done. And so before we get going too deep into live, let me just talk about what I've experienced and some things that might be helpful to you. First of all, Dixie Belle's new product, they have a huge variety of colors, huge by meaning 18 colors, and I just want to showcase those real quick. A lot of colors to choose from. I will tell you up front, you really got to get your hands into them. I would imagine a lot of your retailers are going to have samples around so you can see the colors in action. In other words, don't judge the color by the product only because one, it looks a little different in the container as it does dry and before you protect it, top coat or wax. So just telling you that up front. So it's really good to get your eyes on it and experience that and see how the retailers will be handling that in their location. So definitely check out their new product line. The Terra paint's really good. You can already see that I put this one to use. This is the color that we're looking at on this is my actual home. This is what we're using as my entertainment center. It's kind of a mission style cabinet and it's got great structure for this product I'm doing tonight because I want to do a lot of drippy and boho style with it. This reminds me a lot of vintage duck egg, and this is Blue Agave. Blue Agave is, and as you can see on the cover, it almost looks like a darker green, but keep in mind that this has not yet been waxed or top coated, so it will darken up. Let me show you, and by the way, across the bottom of the screen, you're gonna see the 5 colors I'm aiming to use tonight. No guarantees, but I'm gonna do my best to use those colors. Let me give you an example. These are posts that I just hacked up an old bed and painted. These are, and you can see off in the background, these are all, I have 14 other colors that I'm trying out. This is the color right here, and this has been top coated with Dixie Belle satin top coat. So if you give it, I would say follow the instructions as far as dry time, dry it. Basically for me, I painted a coat, let it dry 24 hours, painted another coat, and then waited like 2 days, and then I top coated it. And that's satin. So if you want to know what satin looks like on Terra, that's it. I believe they're coming out with a top coat, Terra top coat that might be a little bit more flat. The bottom line is all 4 of these posts have been top coated. I don't typically use wax. Knock yourself out if that's what you like to do, but I'm going to be going with more of a top coat style. So if you're interested in that, to me, it's going to be easier to work with, meaning I don't have to do any rub, I don't have to buff, and I have pretty good protection with the top coat as well. So that's just what I've done. Not that I've thrown this down my stairs, or I don't have stairs, I guess I have 2, but or down my driveway to see how durable it is, but it is top coat. And you can put 2, 3, 4, 5 coats on it if you want. Hey JPO, good to see you tonight. Thanks for coming in. So again, I use top coat and I'm really pleased with how well it did. I would not recommend top coating too soon because you need that clay paint to harden and get a little nice and dry, but I had no problems with it. I also used, for me, I used Dixie Belle's mini brush to apply the paint. I tried the natural bristle. I just felt like I wasn't getting a stiff enough application. So I also used the Dixie Belle mini on applying the 1 coat of paint on this cabinet. Now I will tell you one fantastic thing about the paint is that, let me show you some before pictures. Join me as I show you a couple things real quick. So these are pictures that I took. This is the cabinet I cleaned it. I do not have the Terra Clean, so I used White Lightning. And I love using Dixie Belle Gray Boss. One, because I'm using top coat. I don't want it to bleed through. I didn't want to take any chances. So this is a picture of the before, and on the right you can see me applying Boss. And then the next thing that I did was, let's see if it'll advance, and maybe I need to go backwards. What's it doing? Oh, hold on. I'm clicking on the wrong one. There you go. So this right here, friends, is the top is wet and the front side is almost dry. So you will see a different tone from wet to dry. And I'm telling you that because I don't want you to freak out if you get a hold of this project and go, oh, it looks horrible. It's going to go through its phases just like chalk mineral paint does. And I talk about this a lot in my lives, that sometimes you just need to do the process and let it dry and see where you are. I was very pleased with how well the product, when I first put it on, I thought, man, this is really thin. And I said the same thing with these posts. In fact, with the post, I probably used too much water to wet it down, and I didn't use any spray or mist. And if I can bring in, let's hope that the product works, or it is solid. You don't see any of the Boss through. It does a good job in one coat, but I'm not stopping there, or we wouldn't have a live tonight, right? We kind of need to do a few more things to it. So again, in order to really get as far as I want to be, as I'll call a boho style, we need to use what I'm going to say is the artistry benefits of this product. The fact that you can re-wet it gives you the ability to mix some of the previous coats into your current. So again, I'm really working with going fast pace. I have a lot to cover. I see Dixie Belle's helping answer any questions, and so that's really great. The other thing I would normally recommend with chalk mineral paint is I like to do a light sand, because you can feel the texture. With chalk paint, you can feel the texture even more. It feels more like you went from a 220 grit to an 80 or even a 120 grit. So there's a noticeable difference in texture. Again, we're dealing with a different product from a clay-based or a chalk mineral base to a clay-based. Dixie Belle's chalk mineral paint, if I painted, which I did yesterday, and I try to come up here and wet it, I can't reactivate it. This one I can spray right now. Let's do that. You can see how the color changes pretty quick, and I can go in there with my finger and just start rubbing that paint and get it on your finger. Which means I could also soften this finish up. If you want to soften this, you could almost wet distress it, and that would work great. So since we're going artistic, I've got a butcher pan here. This is basically what I use in art school to do watercolors, and I want to keep in that artistic mindset with this. I don't want to just dip into one container and apply that paint. I want to keep this fairly loose. I'm going to go in there with my mini. As I mentioned before, so far everything I've done on this piece is with the mini, and I definitely want to explore that. So it doesn't hurt to do a little mist on your brush. You can mist your piece if you want. The clay base feels really dry, although it's moist and wet. So you're not going to get as far with the color. And I'm speaking from painting this whole cabinet. It painted thicker, almost like the chalk mineral paint was dry, but it's not chalk mineral paint. So you just have to understand that it's a little different. And but I tell you what, if you like exploring, see what I'm doing right now, I can do a chalk mineral paint, but there's no way that this color is working with the previous layer as I work. So right now I'm just freestyling the color on there, and you can see the dark green, that's the base coat wet. This is where I was telling you, you have to almost trust that this is going to work out. And that's with any other product that you ever use, is you just need to try it a few times, and after a while you know how the product works, how it reacts. So if I load up my brush, it's going to feel like it's not going as far as chalk mineral paint will. So I'm just telling you from doing this, it's a different feel. Like right now, this looks really thin, but I know that when it dries, it's going to be more potent and stronger of a color. And what I want to do then is I want to then transition to the next color. So I'm working my way down. And I'm just putting it on there. I'm not doing any special technique, just applying it. And this, like I said, I like right now that the 1-inch mini has a nice, firm, reliable, I just like it, okay? So again, you use the brush or your hands or spatula, whatever works for you. And if occasionally that color gets a little higher, that's okay. So I'm slowly going down. And here's where, if you want, you can start misting it, let it consume that mist, and then if you want to go more, go more. You might need a more mega sprayer if you feel like the mister is just not unleashing enough water. Then come in there and get a little closer. Like right now, I'm barely pulling the trigger. I don't know if you can see that water dripping down. So the misting bottle can't really do that much of a drip. I'm going to keep going. I think it's great that we're staying on this one section. I'm now down to Blue Moon. You'll see me dipping into the butcher pan quite a bit. Because I don't want too much paint on my brush. It doesn't really, I don't think it really personally helps you to have a lot of paint loaded up. I don't even do that for chalk mineral paint. Dixie Belle just said a moment ago, it's very forgiving. And I'm painting very or somewhat haphazardly. I'm not worried about my brush strokes. Okay, just get the paint on there. And I'm pushing. To me, this pushing, getting the paint in there, for my style, I think the regular synthetics are going to be my go-to. But you got to do you. Okay, you can already tell I need to get a little bit of water on this. So I want to move it a little bit more. Now, if you are following me on Instagram or Facebook, you would have seen my recent piece, and it has a lot of wet layers on it. And it's a great technique I like to use. And what that allows me to do is, if I want, I could come back after tonight's live, let's say tomorrow, and I could take the original color, wet this down into a wash, and wash over the whole piece and add more layers to it. So right there, you can see some of these colors dripping. I've misted this already, but I want to use a larger bottle. So this is one that you can adjust the tip. Right now it's still on mist, but what you can do is I just get really close and almost you're putting out a little bit heavier water, but I can do a big mist and really move some of these colors around. So this is the kind of playing we're talking about. Some of this color, this is the original color showing through because I've wet it down really well. But when it comes to the drips, when I'm using chalk mineral paint, oftentimes I'll take a wet rag and I might just dab that, just so maybe you don't want such a prominent drip happening. You know, you want drips, but this also adds texture, which I like that too. I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's put the color a little bit lower down. I don't think I wanted to go so dark so fast. So let's go back and let's just kind of see how it's just, right now, it's like smooth as butter. It's because it's wet. So if you want to smooth, you got to get it wet. So I'm almost like blending right now. There's so much water on there. That's helping me get some of that color down there. And while we're here, let's just put a little bit of, I don't want to go so solid blue. I want layers, I want texture. So I'm just gonna, I want this to be almost Mediterranean, if you will. So again, I did a lot of that very dry. It's really helping. Let's go back with our misting bottle. get as close. This is where I'm really putting it on somewhat heavy. I want drips. I'm encouraging drips right now. So like areas here where you can see my brush strokes, you know, maybe we'll take our rag. Let's do that. So we're adding textures here. I'm just going to dilute a little bit of those brush stroke edges. Okay, I'm going to bring in again. So there, whoa, sorry. There, so just hopefully it's capturing a little bit of the movement. And so you can go from dry to wet very quick. Well, let's put some of this wheat. And remember I talked about the complement color. So this is the complement color or close to it. I would say a reddish orange would be a little closer, but I do like the pop of color here. Notice how I'm going sideways. So you can do that. And you can say, well, I'm only going to do this on the top part, like near the top. Like, do you really want it down in the blue? I don't know. But there's something that the eye loves about having this touch. So let's do a little bit of dragging. I want to be careful because my paint's still a little wet. I'll probably find that I don't want to do too much of that. And I just stuck this straight into the container. Now what I want to do too, this is the next step you can decide, is if you want to, if you would like to activate this, it's still wet, but you might want to say, I'd like to move this. I'm just going to encourage it a little bit. So I'm touching it with my finger, and we're just going to encourage it. Let me try it with my larger mist spray bottle. What usually will happen is if you don't activate it or keep it going, it may not want to move as much. So sometimes you just have to give it a little bit of encouragement, and it's starting to drip. But even if I don't drip this, I love exactly how it's just right there. But getting it wet will allow it to kind of feel aged and worn. Let me bring you in the first part. So this is, you know, just gives it a little bit of a softer tone. The coloring may be off and on. My camera likes to adjust with its own brain. So look what we did with clay paint. Which side do you like? Okay, this is not it. I know this is not everybody's cup of tea and style, but if you're trying to figure out how to create a really cool boho. Now, one thing I did here, since I used the brush, I'm gonna go back with my rag and just add a little bit of texture, and that'll break it up from being too streaky. Streaky by meaning it looks like it was just brushed. Now it's gonna feel worn. I want that worn look. So the question is, can you use chalk mineral paint? There are two different types of paint. One's probably gonna move differently. And guess what, tomorrow, if I wanna wet this all down, I can really reactivate and get this all moving again. You know, the other thing that I would like to try, if you would like to join me, if you've been watching me long enough, I like to use the word shading. In fact, on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist just for shading. Yeah, I want to see if this will shade. It's like have you ever seen those, what is it, YouTube? It's like, will it shade? So this is black. Well, it's not called black, it's called onyx, I believe. Yes, onyx. So this is the black. This may be a little much. Well, if it's a little much, let's tone it down. I'm starting to make a mess and I love it. Let's use one of Dixie Belle's craft brushes. So I'm just going to take some of this onyx and put it on my tray. And let's mix it with, this is, step forward, what color are you? Okay, this is Blue Agave. So all I'm doing right now is mixing Blue Agave and onyx. If this doesn't work, I'll be sad, but I have a feeling, I have a good hunch that we're moving in the right direction. So that's enough. Shading basically is my way of not using wax, adding some dark accents to the corners. So let's do this. Let's start at the darker spot, because I think if this is going to work, it's going to work better down here. It's still wet. It's a little troubling. We'll fix that right now. That was creepy, sorry. I think that was my Batman voice coming out. All I'm going to do is just put a thin streak down it. And maybe I'll even come down here a little bit. So this is just me darkening the crevices, okay? Now usually what I do next is I will take another brush and hey, we'll go with the natural brush. I love the French tip for this part. I'm gonna miss the French tip because I need it a little bit wet. I'm just gonna see, maybe what I'll do, keep with the grunge. I'm trying to blend that in a little bit. I just wanna kinda get rid of a little bit of the edge, but I don't wanna lose the darkening aspect that I've done. I need to see how this dries tonight, or tomorrow or later, whatever, to know if I should keep going. I know I want to keep going, but I don't know how this shading is going to work. So again, down here, you might just go more black. So I'm just darkening the corners. And I'm not trying to soften it so much. If I do too much blending here, I'm going to lose my texture. So I'm kind of dabbing. And we'll see how that dries. Do you see at the bottom how earlier we started out it was very dark and it's starting to lighten up because it's drying? The next step is, if I like where I'm at, let it dry a couple days or give it a good 36, whatever. You want it to dry. You want more of that to cure. I put a decent amount of paint. When I top coat this, the colors are gonna scream back out and just say, best piece ever. That's what it says. When it screams, it says best piece ever. Does yours scream that way? I'm sure they do. Best piece ever. When you see this piece done, I hope that you say, I watched that. I know how he did that. I could totally do this, but I'm gonna do it with my colors, my style. I really didn't use, but technically 2 brushes. I don't know if that the French tip really counted, but we did all that with the 1-inch mini, most of this work, and then misting bottles. So I was pretty happy about that. Really, any brush for the size of your piece, pick the brush that makes sense. And then explore with it. The last factor in all this is the finishing top coat, whether it's your wax or your top coat. Remember all my posts that I did that are in the back, I used satin top coat. I just let it dry a good 2 days before I applied that, and it looks great. If you don't want the sheen, a flat, which I think that's what Dixie Belle's Terra top coat's going to be, is more of a flat. I hope that gives you some exciting things to see what you can do with yours. The possibilities are endless, and I'm excited to see this get done. I can't wait to get it back under my TV and get things off the floor. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you're watching on replay, let us know. All right, friends, thank you so much for watching. Pass this along. We always appreciate it. And be sure to use the link in the description of the live. Until next time, be creative, do something awesome. I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. Talk to you all later. Thank you.
The show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.